Okay.
That's what we did last time.
I know it's what we should, and that's what we should do. That's what we should do. And I've dropped the ball there. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Tim.
I'm Dana.
And this is episode 2
of the United States of Consciousness. I wanted to say thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody that took the time to give us a listen. Thank you for coming back, and welcome. Welcome to everybody who's joining us for the first time.
I have a reason why I want to go here, why I want to start here, because I think it's fundamental to everything we're going to talk about here on out. I don't know if we're necessarily on the same page with this or not. So our topic today is mentalism. It's ontology, meaning what we each think the base of reality is. One of the things that I asked you to look at this week was the Kybalion, because in that, with the first principle of Hermeticism, which we can talk all about, Hermes Trismegistus and all the ancient philosophy around that. But I think it's important to kind of start with what we believe to be the fundamental building blocks of reality. So why don't you tell me kind of where you're at, and then I can tell you where I am, and then we can see if we actually have more in common than we really think.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I did start the book this week, and I haven't finished it. And some of it I really had to go back and reread and listen to it again for it to like really sink in. I do agree that there are principles, right, for like your foundation of knowledge. And for the first one, this idea about mentalism, the idea of mastering your mind, like first, it feels like the perfect place to start. And something that really stuck out to me was the mind is all. And essentially the universe, like, is the mind. Like the mind, it's so hard to articulate. You see, like I was getting like really, like I said to you earlier, I was like, I'm really getting thrown for a loop with all of this. It like really tries to unpack like science, but also things that are not science. And I think I align with you in a lot of those regards.
Yeah. So and I think more and more it is aligning with science, and we'll get into all that. But really the first principle in Hermeticism is mind is all, just like you said. And what that really is getting to is that our consciousness actually is the fundamental base reality. But growing up, we learned like there's a couple different things. There's materialism, which says that everything is atom, particle, right? Like those are the building blocks of reality as we know it. Then there's dualism, which says that our mind and matter are separate, which a lot of people fall into this camp. And then there is idealism, which says that consciousness is all. And the reason why I wanted to go here, because I think a lot of the things that we think and we believe line up more with idealism, but we're so programmed in society in our day-to-day to think either between the dualism or even materialism. And a lot of scientists fall in that material perspective in ontology. So I think it's really important to kind of start here and see if we can get some alignment, because I think we're all saying the same thing. I just don't know that we necessarily know it.
I agree.
Yeah. So if you look at like religion, for example, right? All major religions, and it's important to sort of separate religion from spirituality. And, this is certainly not a religious podcast, but the fundamentals of religion, actually all of them, really is this idea that you are not apart from God, that you are God experiencing itself through your perspective, right?
That's very well said. Yeah.
But I think that's actually what idealism is saying as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was trying to unpack this a little bit earlier myself, because I do agree that we're all saying the same thing. That there's this idea that there's a higher power, but you have a different name for it, and I might call it something else. But that higher power is really all of us in its entirety. We are the higher power. If you could help me explain it better.
Yeah. So it's just basically this idea. I guess a good way to think about it is like the placebo effect, right? So we have these results from, not taking a medication, but we're expecting the results, so we're actually creating our own reality. And that's really what the fundamental nature of this principle is that our reality starts within our mind.
Because I think that they were also saying that essentially we only can acknowledge it with the current senses that we have as a human.
Yeah.
So, our five senses. And actually, things that are tangible and ideas and things like that, all of that is our human experience identifying spirit.
Hmm.
Did I understand that correctly? Is that
Yeah.
what the
Yeah, you nailed
teaching
it.
was?
So I have a personal theory that I think we can conceptualize this and we can see this in reality based on our level of consciousness. Level of consciousness is an idea that basically it's a level of awareness, and that
Yeah,
it can be actually calculated through something called kinesiology, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, in future episodes. But it basically puts a number on level of awareness by tapping into universal consciousness to understand that number. So I have this theory that because if you look at all like the great scientists from our time, right, like Einstein, Newton, you name it, they all calibrate at 499. 500 is that area of love. So it's like you're really separating that dualism from more of an idealism perspective.
definitely. Yeah, and also there are things that our five senses can't necessarily acknowledge until we come to this place where we understand these principles to see beyond ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that's kind of where science is sort of stuck right now. And this idea of like the analytical idealism that I was talking about earlier this week, the author basically lays out that the way that we look at science right now is sort of like flying an airplane and looking at the dashboard, right? Meaning
Oh,
we are looking for repeatable results in experiments, and that's how we come to know truth. But what we're actually doing is reading the dashboard. Does that make sense? So we're
yeah.
not actually understanding how the plane flies, but we understand all the metrics about it. The differentiator in these experiences, or I guess the similarity between all of them, is that we're consciously observing them. So to say that,
So
I know,
good.
I know. So to say that particles are the fundamental building block of reality, it's a little bit backwards because without us observing them, they weren't exist in the first place.
Oh, it's so good. It blows my mind.
I know. I know.
That's fantastic.
So,
Oh my goodness.
anyways,
I did want to
yeah.
ask a question though. So when you were discussing Newton earlier and the scientists, you said that they were operating at 499.
Hmm.
And so what does that mean? What is 499?
Yeah. And what we can put up right now, sort of the pyramid of level of consciousness, 499, 400 to 499 is the level of like reason and intellect. 500 is love. Breaking that barrier from 499 to 500 could take lifetimes of going over and over, sort of learning the same thing. But the fundamental difference of actually getting there is understanding that dualism is not the way that reality works.
And so we will come back over and over and over again in different vessels until we master love.
That's my theory.
Wow. So I have a very similar theory, which is I believe in reincarnation personally. And what I think is that, yes, you are here to master love, but I think that you're also here to master your own personal individual challenges. Like for me, like I know the things that I have to master. But that might be different for my girlfriend. Like that might be different for you. Like the things that I struggle with, like you may not struggle with at all. So it's almost like your own blueprint. Like you come back if you haven't mastered it, right?
Mm,
It's like your journey to get there. It's like this idea that we were talking about last week, this idea of struggle to get to where you're going. Like you have to go through these experiences.
mhm.
But that's individual to you. And so I think maybe, just maybe, there's a couple different things that we have to master before we truly like ascend to top tier level, which is love. And, when I go to church and when I think about it, like, that's what we talk about is that God is love, right? Like, and we are love and God is in you. And, you might have a different belief. Like, you might go to temple, like, maybe you don't go to church, right? Like, but I think ultimately it's always the same goal, right? This idea that we're all love.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, and the
And
spirits. Oh, okay, continue.
and just a quick correct or clarification for something that I said. Number one, I said it was my theory. That's bullshit.
Oh,
There's a lot of people who have done a lot of work to that I'm repeating. That's all. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so as far as David Hawkins sees it and his outline for levels of consciousness, love is the next, but actually enlightenment is the top, which is 700 to 1,000. And then so it goes love, unconditional love or joy, and then peace, bliss, which is the same level of consciousness from 600 to 700, and then enlightenment or pure consciousness, the one consciousness from 700 to 1,000.
so okay. So could you say that maybe dogs are operating in a much higher frequency in consciousness? Like they are unconditional pure love? Like,
So you could say that. I mean, yeah, of course, you could say and believe whatever, but in my personal belief, I think dogs
oh,
understand things that we don't, but they're not necessarily at a high level of consciousness.
understood. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Oh,
what's really, I think, important to mention here that, we talked about sort of God being in all of us and are all of us in the same single consciousness. I think what we finally come to the conclusion that, to love another is to love ourselves. That's really where that stuff comes from, is we're really all the same.
we really truly are. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, it's so good. I feel lighter already.
And then I think, the ideal of idealism, um, I think as time goes on and science sort of gets more sophisticated with, in the quantum realm and things like that, I think what we find is like the teachings of the Kybalion or of Hermeticism become more and more the case, like things like as above, so below, which we'll get into in future weeks. But, things like the double slit experiment, which is probably like the thing that I reference the most, but I think people just blow past this.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this?
No.
Oh, okay. This is gonna blow your mind then.
Okay.
So it's an experiment from like the 1800s, like 1801, and basically they shot photons of light through slits, and what they realized is that the photons would act differently whether they were being observed or if they were not being observed. So, for example, when they were not being observed, they would come out as particles, and when they were being observed, they would come out as waves, which sort of means they have like an endless opportunity to be anything once they're observed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why people say that, consciousness is the wave collapsing function, meaning that we are actually controlling the environment with our consciousness.
At all
So
times.
at all times. So it's really that aligns more with idealism that consciousness actually is the fundamental base layer. And that's why we have trouble. That's why scientists have trouble, accepting psychics, accepting spirituality, accepting things that they can't prove because they're like I said before, right? They're reading the dashboard as opposed to understanding how the plane flies.
Oh, that's incredible. I was thinking about this earlier actually because I was getting a little like tripped up in a lot of the concepts in the literature. And it made me kind of think about how so I'm a sociology major and really, basic sociology. It's just the study of human interaction, like human behavior and things like that. And 101, right? Like sociology 101 is so when we are out and about and we see another human, if we cannot immediately identify their gender, we get stuck on it. We get fixated on it. So, like, here's at the grocery store, and you're like, oh, I don't know. And you'll think about it and you'll mull over it until you come to your own conclusion. I don't know why. it is with gender, but it just is. And so that's what was happening to me as I was going through this literature. I was like, wait, I don't think I understand that one part. And I would like mull over it. And so I think when we talk about consciousness and these different planes that like our energy can exist, there's only so much that I guess science backs up until you're like, "Hey, like, I can't identify it," and, like, I get caught, and I think that probably happens for a lot of people trying to
Yeah.
understand these concepts. It's like, "Wait."
Yeah. So I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a minute. And if we want to cut this out, we can.
Okay.
So I personally believe that, like, at the highest levels of government and of science, that's not like the stuff that we hear about. I think that there's a lot of people who truly do understand this. And I think that they use it in ways that we don't even really begin to understand. But I think that the ability to control us, or how uncontrollable we would be if we really did understand these things, that's why we're taught them from an early age, like this dualism or materialism,
Ooh,
because I think the power that it gives us to understand, or to even have 1% understanding, I don't mean to say that, you know, we could even understand, is gives us immense power, but it's really hard to control that. And if you look at the Hermetic principles, right? Like the masculine feminine principle, I think right now this is like a playbook of these trigger points of how to get us to fight with each other and distract us. And if you really look at the principles, it's sort of what is happening now in politics and in society and in social media. It really like follows the playbook of how to distract you and to get you confused. And I think the more we can detach from that, get back to the fundamental principles, the better off that we all are.
that is super well said. I do agree.
It's a scary time.
It is. And I feel like they usually say, that the human brain, we don't actually utilize, like, the full capacity of what our brains can do. But how do you measure that? Like, how do you measure what is the full capacity? When you think about things like your intuition, right? And it's like, or deja vu, like, oh, I've been here before. Like these phenomenons, like, how do you explain that?
But even you saying that it's your brain is really this either materialism or dualistic view, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
I know.
It's incredible. I was very intrigued because when they were recapping mentalism, they were talking about like psychic abilities as well. And then there are so many people that have these beautiful psychic gifts. And what if we did know, how to use that at our own strength to do good for people, right? Like if you could talk to a psychic and connect with your loved one on the other side, maybe you don't need that grief therapy. Maybe you don't need that super expensive therapist anymore. Maybe you don't need those drugs anymore because you're not depressed anymore, right? Like you start to break out of the loop, out of the cycle.
The truth is that we all have these abilities, right?
Okay,
And
which
like, what if we could all learn to use them ourselves? And
right.
that's really that's that's the secret.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, the keys to the kingdom. Oh, that is so exciting. So we get there by expanding our awareness, right? Is that the goal?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Together as a collective almost.
So how do you do that?
I suppose you would have to be authentic and lead from a place of love and let people have their own journeys. It's probably not linear.
Yeah. And I think I sort of touched on this last week, and the act of meditation and of silence and reflection. I think the longer that you do that, the more that you realize this sort of disconnect between your soul, your consciousness, and the rest of reality. I think as you're doing that, that's actually the best way to sort of train to
Oh,
raise consciousness. And then separately from that, which you mentioned, which is I think a necessary, unfortunately, way to raise consciousness is the struggle. I think a lot of times when the worst things happen to us, a lot of people ask why, and of course, right? I mean, things are horrible. But
Yeah.
I think what we can always fall back on is whatever we struggle with in life, or whatever happens to us that seems unfair. I think we can always say to ourselves that this is part of the process of raising that level of awareness.
Yeah. It's hard to see the silver lining in that concept because some things really are so deeply tragic. Um, and to say, so one time you had said, like, oh, like we choose our parents and, we choose our siblings and we choose this journey ultimately because we have a higher goal in mind, right? Like the higher goal doesn't really care about what's on the ground, but more so learning the lesson. And so I had to, like you had said that to me. I was like, why would I choose any of this for myself? Like, and then I was unpacking it with my sister Diana. And I was like, and it really clicked. Like, I was like, oh, like, why would I pick that ex-boyfriend or why would I pick this like super tragic like event? And it's like, oh, because they're all just mirrors to me of the things that I struggle with. And that person didn't make it out, but I did, right? Like, and then you think of like, I don't know, like kids, right? Like sometimes terrible things happen to kids, and it's like, but then they get to come back and they don't have to, like, go through that terrible thing. It's like an opportunity to like continue to learn. And where it gets tricky is not being able to recall any of your past lives. And do you
Yeah.
even believe in past lives, right? Like, so I've had people, I was very intrigued when you said this last week about old souls. So I've had people tell me a million times that I'm an old soul. I've been here thousands of times. And I'm like, why do I have to keep coming back? But it wasn't until now that I was like, oh, I get it. Because it's my journey
Yeah,
out.
it is.
Yeah. To the top, to 500, to 1,000,
To 1,000.
to
So
1,000.
what's the goal? What do you think happens when you get to 1,000?
I think you are pure love.
Yeah. So I think something similar, it's like pure consciousness. Like
Yeah.
you come back into the fold of just like all existence and all reality at the same time.
Oh my gosh. I love that though.
Yeah.
So good.
Let's hope.
I know. People will say, Dana, like, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know that, spirits are around us and, it's probably just black. Like, it's probably just nothing. And I'm like, but it's not. Like, I don't have a scientific explanation as to why I know that. I just know that when we die, that's not the end of us. It's just not. Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
No, you go.
Oh,
Go.
but I was thinking about this earlier because when the book was talking about mentalism, like it was talking about how the things that like we experience here essentially like we're like everything is like a vibration. And so our senses can only like, feel the cup or smell the coffee, but spirits don't have those five senses anymore. But the only thing that we have in common is an energetic vibration. Like, and so if your mind can let go of the tangible, right? Like, then you can continue to like raise your consciousness.
You know, we're all sort of figuring this out together, or at least thinking that we are. And I think at some like fundamental level, to believe in something is better than to believe in nothing. So, I mean, what's the harm? Being
I
happy?
agree. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, how do you want to close this out?
I think maybe we should talk about next week. We're going to continue to dive into the principles
Yeah, we are. What is the principle for next week?
as above, so below.
I don't know if that is it. I don't know if that's it. So next week we'll be back with the second Hermetic Principle.
It will be a journey together.
So in the meantime, thank you for everybody who watched episode 1. Please like, subscribe, and continue to follow us for more. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you.